on Goblin Reddit. Today's story is...
My religious mother-in-law humiliated my past during our anniversary dinner, but when I revealed her husband's secret of harassment, the whole family fell apart. Hi everyone, I'm Alba, I'm 27 years old, and I want to share a complicated situation with my mother-in-law Eliza, who is 52. I married Duncan, my wonderful husband of 28 years, about 5 years ago. We had been dating since high school and had that relationship that seems like something out of a movie. We each went our separate ways for a while, but eventually we found each other again. These 5 years of marriage have been very happy. Like any couple, we have had our difficult moments, but I really couldn't ask for a better partner. Duncan has been my unconditional support, but although our relationship is going very well, the situation with his parents, especially his mother, has never been easy. No matter how hard I try, she always finds some reason to disapprove of me, and to be honest, it wears me out. Duncan, Eliza, and Garrett's parents, 57 years old, are extremely religious. I'm talking about the kind of people who go to church every Sunday, pray before every meal, and follow all the traditions. I completely understand that everyone has their beliefs, and I respect them completely. I just don't share that level of devotion. My family is not religious at all. I didn't grow up going to church or with those kinds of traditions. It's not part of who I am. Duncan and I agreed a long time ago that, although we believe in God, we are not particularly religious. We don't follow every religious precept with the same rigidity as his parents. However, when we visit Eliza and Garrett, we do our best to respect their beliefs. We go to church with them, we pray before eating, and we try to adapt. We know it's important to them, so we just cooperate. But no matter how hard we try to meet halfway, Eliza always finds something negative in me. Honestly, I don't understand what I did to deserve this treatment. Since we got married, she's made it clear that she never considered me good enough for her son. She's never been subtle about telling me either. For example, every time we have dinner at her house, she makes comments like, "It's a shame you gave up your faith, Alba. Duncan was a good boy, and I thought you would help him stay on the right path." He says these things so matter-of-factly, as if they were no big deal. But every time my blood boils, it's like he's saying that I'm not the person Duncan should have married because I don't exactly share his values. I've tried talking to Duncan about it, but he always plays it down. He says, "You know my mother, she doesn't mean anything by it." Maybe he's right, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. I just don't understand why he can't accept me for who I am. I'm a good person. I love Duncan with all my heart. Shouldn't that be enough? For Eliza, it seems that I will never be enough. And that is really difficult to bear. One Christmas, we were at her house, and Eliza verbally attacked me for not teaching Duncan the importance of prayer. She said that I was leading him astray because we don't pray before every meal like they do. I tried to explain to her that Duncan and I are spiritual in our own way, but she didn't seem to care. She kept insisting that I was the one who had turned Duncan away from his faith. It was an incredibly frustrating conversation, and Duncan just sat there in silence without stepping in to defend me. I've tried to be patient with her, but sometimes I feel like no matter what I do, it will never be enough. Duncan and I have talked about this, and while he recognizes that his mother can be difficult, he doesn't think it's worth confronting her. She tells me, "She's old-fashioned, Alba. She doesn't mean to hurt your feelings, but at this point, it's not about whether she means to hurt me or not. It's the fact that she does. It's like she's constantly putting me down without realizing it, and it's starting to get to me." However, when Eliza told us that she wanted to organize a special dinner for our 5th anniversary, I really thought that she was finally starting to accept me. It felt like a big step forward, considering all the tension that had existed. She seemed genuinely enthusiastic, and even asked if we would like to invite my parents. I felt that she was finally willing to include me in her world, and maybe we could start to build a better relationship. She put a lot of effort into the preparations. She invited about 25 other guests, mainly family and some close friends. My parents were also invited, which I thought was a nice gesture. Duncan's father, Garrett, seemed as eager to make the evening special as Eliza. I genuinely appreciated the effort. They even hired a fancy caterer to serve a multi-course dinner. The whole event felt like a real celebration. For a moment, I thought we were leaving the drama and tension behind. I felt that Eliza was trying to turn the page and show me that she was ready to leave the past behind and accept me for who I am. But then things took the worst possible turn. We were all enjoying our dinner, chatting away happily, when Eliza decided to stand up and make a toast. At first I thought nothing of it, as she had done so at previous family gatherings. But this time her words sent a knot into my stomach. She began by talking about how her wonderful son Duncan had saved me from a life of shame. At first I was confused, thinking she was going to give a kind and sincere speech. But no. She went on to talk about how Duncan had been the one to rescue me from the darkness of my past. She began to tell the whole room how I had been influenced by the devil during my university years. I was completely paralyzed. Duncan looked at me, obviously as surprised as I was. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Eliza kept talking non-stop about how Duncan was the one who saved me from this supposed life of sin. Duncan tried to interrupt her, his face full of confusion, and asked her what she was saying. He said, "Mom, what are you talking about? Where's this coming from?" And then, as if it couldn't get any worse, Eliza said that she had met a former friend of mine from university. She claimed that this person had told her that I had been dominated by sins during my university years. I couldn't believe it, really? What was she talking about? Duncan looked even more baffled than I did, and I just sat there, completely embarrassed. My face must have been completely red, and I could feel all the eyes in the room on me. I didn't know whether to defend myself or just wait for it to be over. But Eliza didn't stop there. She continued to make it sound as if Duncan was some kind of savior who had intervened and rescued me from my troubled life. She said that Duncan had saved me from making bad decisions and that somehow I was lucky that he had chosen me. She mentioned how many people had warned him about me even before we were married. What does that mean? Many people? I was completely stunned. Duncan was furious at this point. He got up abruptly and asked her to stop. He said, "Mom, this isn't funny. This is not what tonight is about." But Eliza wasn't finished. She just kept talking about how Duncan had been too kind to marry me and how he had sacrificed so much to be with someone like me. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This whole event, which was supposed to be a celebration of our marriage, had turned into a nightmare. Right there, at the table, I couldn't hold back any longer. I was so ashamed and furious about what Eliza was saying that I just exploded. I told her straight out that I had no idea what she was talking about. Duncan naturally tried to calm the situation down. He was probably hoping that if he took her aside for a moment, things would calm down. But it didn't work. Eliza just kept shouting at me, insulting me repeatedly, saying that Duncan should leave me. The whole room was in shock. I felt like the walls were closing in on me, and I could feel all the stares around me. Duncan didn't seem to know what to do. It was a completely surreal moment. I tried to defend myself, but I could barely get a word in edgeways over her screams. And in that moment, with all that anger building up, I ended up saying something I never thought I would say. It wasn't planned. I don't even know where it came from, but I blurted it out. I told everyone about Garrett. You see, a few years ago, Garrett's secretary filed a harassment lawsuit against him. The case was settled with Garrett agreeing to pay compensation. I found out about this just a few months ago after speaking to a mutual acquaintance. I didn't know before, and I certainly hadn't said anything to anyone. But when Eliza started humiliating me in front of everyone, something inside me just snapped. I knew she knew about Garrett's past. I had no concrete proof, but I was sure she was aware of what had happened. So in that moment of pure frustration, I said it. At least I had consent, unlike your husband. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I don't even know why I said it. It just came out in the heat of the moment. But the look on Eliza's face was priceless. She was shocked, absolutely stunned. She immediately responded by saying, "I don't know what you're talking about," with that defensive tone, but I could see the truth in her eyes. She knew exactly what I was talking about. The look in her eyes confirmed everything. I wasn't imagining things. Eliza knew Garrett's secret, She knew exactly what had happened. But instead of facing it, she tried to play it down by pretending she didn't know what I was referring to, and I wasn't going to allow it. I said to her again, "You know exactly what I'm talking about." That's when she really lost it. She stormed out of the room, clearly enraged, and I sat there feeling a mixture of guilt and satisfaction. I never intended for it to go this far, but part of me felt it was the only thing I could do to get her to stop belittling me. Duncan, of course, was equally confused. He didn't know about the situation with his father. So when he came back from talking to his parents, he asked me what I was talking about. I was still angry, and at that moment I just exploded again. I didn't want to go into details with him at the time, so I said, "You should ask your parents." I didn't think he would react the way he did. But he seemed really annoyed that I had brought up such a sensitive subject in front of everyone. He left, following Eliza and Garrett, trying to get them to come back. Later, Duncan came back. He was angry, and I could tell he was trying to keep his composure. But the frustration was clearly showing. He said, "Why did you have to bring that up in public? That's something we should have dealt with privately. You've ruined everything." I felt terrible, but at the same time, I was still shocked by everything Eliza had told me. I wasn't sure whether to apologize or stand my ground. Duncan seemed to be more upset with me for exposing Garrett's past than for the way his mother had treated me. Then Eliza came back into the house, and she was furious. She started to say how I had ruined the reputation she had worked so hard for. I could feel the weight of her words, and I just stood there, not knowing what to say. I wasn't trying to ruin anyone's reputation. I was just trying to defend myself, but I felt like no one understood that. Eliza kept saying how this would haunt her forever, how I had tarnished her perfect image in front of everyone. I didn't know how to respond. Duncan is really upset with me, and I feel like I've made things worse between us. Eliza is angry, and I'm sure Garrett isn't too happy either. I don't know if I went too far, or if they deserve to be exposed. So what do you think? Was it me who acted wrongly? Did I overstep the mark? I feel like I need another perspective on this. Please let me know if I'm wrong. Update 1. Hi everyone. I know there has been a lot of confusion, so I thought I would clarify a few things. Many of you are wondering why I never told Duncan about his father's past, and honestly, it's because I didn't know how to broach the subject. I mean, how do you start that conversation? It's not like one day I thought, casually, today I'll tell Duncan that his father was involved in a harassment case. And to be honest, it wasn't something I ever planned to tell him. Duncan has always looked up to his father, like most sons do, and I didn't want to be the one to ruin that image. I only found out about the situation a few months ago, so I hadn't even had enough time to process it myself, let alone figure out how to tell Duncan. It was a big shock when I found out, and it took me a while to process it. I didn't know how to handle that information, and I definitely didn't know how to bring it up without destroying Duncan's perception of his father. I didn't want to be the one to shatter that image, so I kept quiet, but now I understand that keeping it secret wasn't the right thing to do. Especially since the situation came to light in such a messy way. I recognized that mentioning it during dinner was inappropriate. In retrospect, I probably should have found a more private and quiet moment to talk to Duncan about it, but when Eliza was humiliating me in front of everyone, I just couldn't hold back any longer. I was being embarrassed in front of people important to me, and I felt I had no choice but to say something. She was insulting me, tarnishing my reputation, and completely ignoring the fact that her own husband had a much more questionable past. I don't think I could have sat there and taken it all without saying anything. During the journey home after dinner, the car was completely silent. Nobody said a word, and honestly, it was one of the longest journeys of my life. I felt a mixture of guilt, anger, and embarrassment. I didn't know if Duncan was angry with me or if he was simply in shock at what had happened. When we finally got home, I knew I had to apologize, I knew I had made a mistake, and I didn't want Duncan to think I was keeping secrets from him. I sat him down and apologized for not telling him about his father's past and for mentioning it in such a public way. Duncan listened to me, and I could tell he was hurt. He said, "I just wish you would have told me sooner." It wasn't the angry response I expected, but it still hurt. I explained that I didn't want to tarnish his image of his father, and that's why I had kept quiet. I also told him that by trying to protect him from the truth, I had ended up doing the opposite. I had embarrassed him in front of everyone, and I knew that wasn't the way I should have handled it. I told him I didn't want to ruin his relationship with his father, but in the end, that's exactly what I had done, only in the worst possible way. I could see the disappointment in his eyes, but he didn't yell at me. He didn't insult me, he just seemed hurt. The night was supposed to be to celebrate our anniversary, but the whole dinner had turned into a disaster. We both agreed it wasn't the best way to handle things, but we decided to put it behind us for that night and just focus on being together. We spent the rest of the evening quietly, just the two of us. We didn't talk about the argument again. Instead, we just shared a quiet dinner at home watching TV and trying to forget what had happened. I think we both needed space to process everything. After everything that happened, I don't regret mentioning Garrett's past, but I wish I had done it differently. I know it was wrong to expose it like that, especially in front of everyone, but honestly I felt it was the only way to stop Eliza from completely humiliating me. I wish there had been a better way to handle it, and I wish I had been more honest with Duncan from the start. But it's hard to know how to handle something like this, especially when you're caught between protecting someone you love and being honest with them. I wanted to clear up some of the confusion and share my perspective. I'm still not sure if I did the right thing, but I'm trying to move on. Duncan and I are fine now, but I know we'll have things to work out. I just wanted to share my story and hear your thoughts. Did I handle it wrong? What would you have done in my place? I'm really looking for some perspective here. Thanks for reading. Update 2. Hi all. It's been a month since that disastrous night, and honestly, I'm still processing everything. I haven't spoken to Eliza at all. No messages, no calls, nothing. And honestly, it's been a relief. But Duncan has had a few conversations with her, mainly about her father. I haven't pressured him to share all the details with me, but from what he's told me, those conversations have been intense. Apparently, Eliza finally opened up to Duncan about things she had kept hidden for years. She confessed that Garrett had cheated on her several times throughout their marriage, not just with his secretary. Duncan was completely surprised by this revelation. He had always seen his parents as a united front, even if Eliza could be domineering. He had never suspected that his father had been unfaithful, much less repeatedly. Eliza also told him that the first time, when the harassment lawsuit was filed, was one of the most difficult moments of her life. She had spent years covering for Garrett, trying to protect the family image, pretending that everything was fine. Hearing this changed my perception of her a little. Don't get me wrong, I still think she was completely out of line with what she did to me at dinner, but for the first time I really felt compassion for her. Now I understand why she has always been so attached to Duncan. He is the only man in her life who has not disappointed her. The only one she feels she can fully trust. Garrett disappointed her repeatedly, and instead of leaving him, she channeled all her energy into Duncan, making him the center of her world. This explains a lot about why she has always been so overprotective, why she has been so against me, and why she acts as if Duncan is the only good thing she has left. This revelation didn't make me forgive her, but it did help me understand her better. I still don't think it justifies how she treated me, and it definitely doesn't justify what she said about me in front of everyone, but at least I can better understand her behavior now. She is a woman who has been betrayed by the man to whom she dedicated her life, and now she desperately clings to the only person she feels won't betray her. It's quite sad when I think about it that way. Duncan has been dealing with all this. He has always seen his father as a strong and respectable man. Now that image has been shattered. He tells me that he constantly goes over moments from his childhood, wondering if his mother was suffering in silence all that time. He feels guilty for never having noticed it, for never realizing that his mother was carrying so much pain. And he's also angry at his father's actions, angry that his mother never told him, and angry that he had to find out in the most public and humiliating way possible. As for Eliza, she hasn't apologized to me, and honestly, I don't think she ever will. I think in her mind, she still sees me as the problem. He will probably always believe that I took Duncan away from him, that I took him away from his religion, that I am not the right person for him. I have accepted that. I no longer need his approval. So that is how things are now. It has been a difficult and emotionally draining month. But I think we are finally moving forward. Thank you for listening to my story, and thank you for all the support. It has really helped me get through all this. Update 3. Hi everyone. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and honestly, not much has happened for a while. Duncan and I have been focusing on our own lives, trying to get through all the drama. I was really hoping things would stay calm, but of course that didn't happen. Last week, Eliza showed up at our house unannounced. I wasn't sure what to expect because, as I mentioned, I hadn't spoken to her in months. I honestly thought she might have come to reclaim me or to blame me more, but she looked different, tired, a little lost. She didn't even have her usual attitude when I opened the door. She just asked if she could come in. Duncan and I sat with her in the living room, and she informed us that Garrett had left. Apparently, he left a note saying that he needed to sort some things out and just took off. She hadn't heard from him since. No calls, no messages, nothing. She had no idea where he was or when he would return. At first, I was really surprised. I didn't think Garrett was the kind of person who would just disappear like that. I always saw him as an arrogant man who thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. But I guess even he wasn't immune to the weight of his own actions. Eliza was very upset, saying she didn't know what to do. She called his friends, checked all his usual places, even contacted his work, but nobody knew anything. Duncan and I also tried to contact him, but no response. We even asked other people, but it was as if he had disappeared. A few days later, Duncan's aunt called us with some information. It turns out that Garrett hadn't gone very far. He was staying at the family lake house, completely isolated. Duncan's aunt said that Garrett was too ashamed to show his face in public because apparently the news about his past had spread in his social circles, and now he was ashamed to show his face. When Eliza heard this, she immediately turned to me and started blaming me again. She said that if I had simply kept quiet during dinner, none of this would have happened, that I had ruined her family, that Garrett had to run away because of me. She said that because of me, he can't even show his face in church, that because of me, people whisper when she walks by, that her friends no longer invite her to their gatherings like they used to, that when she goes to the supermarket, she can feel the judgment of the other women in the community. She said that I humiliated her in front of everyone, and now she is the one who has to suffer the consequences. She went on to talk about how I had destroyed everything she had built, how she had spent years creating a good reputation for her family, and now it was all gone. The people she had known for decades, church members, old friends, neighbors, were looking at her differently now. She even mentioned that she had difficulty attending church because every time she walked in, she could feel people talking about her behind her back. But before she could reply, Duncan interrupted her, and let me tell you, I have never been more proud of him. He told her straight that this wasn't my fault. It was Garrett's. Garrett was the one who had been unfaithful. Garrett was the one who had harassed his secretary. Garrett was the one who had made his own choices. And now, instead of facing the consequences, he was running away. Duncan told her that she needed to stop looking for someone else to blame and start holding the one who was really responsible. He told her that it was unfair to put all this on me when I was the one who was humiliated first. He reminded her that she was the one who got up during that dinner and attacked me in front of everyone, mentioning things that didn't concern her, just to belittle me, and that if he had treated me with a minimum of respect, none of this would have happened. Liza was stunned. I don't think she expected Duncan to defend me like that. He can usually be manipulated into seeing things from her perspective, but not this time. He stood his ground and didn't allow her to distort the situation. After that, she fell silent. She just sat there, processing everything. And then, without another word, she got up, picked up her bag, and left. And that's how things stand at the moment. Duncan and I haven't heard from Eliza or Garrett since. We don't know if Garrett is still at the lake house or if he plans to return. We don't know if Eliza is finally starting to realize that her husband is not the man she claims he is. And honestly, I don't really care anymore. So that's the latest update. Thanks for listening. I appreciate all the support you've given me throughout this whole complicated process.